Hello again. Our transformation in social cohesion is happening on South African campuses. UFS Vice-Chancellor Francis Peterson says positive steps are often blurred by ugly racial events. He says universities should not be defined by incidents like the ones we saw recently in Stellenbosch, the urination scandal. Professor Peterson says racism can emerge at any institution and any time. He joins us now for more on his opinions. Prof, good afternoon, and thank you very much for your time. I want to start where you sort of end in your opinion piece and in my intro there, where you're making the point that what you call trigger events that happen at universities are issues that have to be dealt with, that can be spoken about. They're part of the lived experience, but they do not define, you say, they do not define, limit or reflect who we are or what you are as universities. Why is it so important for you to drive this point home?
Yes, good afternoon, Dan, and good afternoon to the viewers. Now, I think it's very important that we look at these events that's taking place as, and I call it often trigger events. These are events that that ask for institutions to pause, to reflect a bit, and then to think what they in fact should be doing differently. If you're gonna be caught up in a space where you think that these incidents and events define you as an institution, that will block any reflection that you should be doing, not only as those that are affected by incidents such as those that happen at Stellenbosch and also happen at other institutions, but that the institution should have the ability to also pause and reflect and say, well, where are we on this transformation journey of ours as an institution? And I think once we start to do that, we could then, with deep honesty, decide what is the way forward and how we're going to go about doing it. For me, that is the critical inflection point, the point of the incident of trigger. And I think we often institutions fall in the trap by seeing this as one incident and then deal with it as one incident. I see that as part of a journey, and we need to learn from it, and we need to build the future as an institution from those learnings and from new thoughts.
So you would agree with the people, as you say in your article, in your opinion piece, who want to treat the Stellenbosch incident, urinating incident, as a worthwhile point to investigate so they can find out where it is. I mean, they've appointed an independent commission to be headed by Judge Sisi Kampepe. I interviewed her a few days ago. She was telling me about her thoughts about how she's going to be approaching this independent commission and why she accepted to be heading it, why it's important to do exactly what you are saying. We can't just let this trigger event go pass by without doing this reflection you are mentioning.
Yeah. So Dan, I often say that transformation is a journey. You never actually arrive at a sort of an end point. And as a university, that actually should make sense to us, because the nature of the university is to look at perpetual renewal in terms of what we're doing. So we should always question, we should debate, we should confront, and we should reflect. And I believe in that complexity and grappling with complexity. There is where deep transformation really happens. And for me, it's important that this incident is dealt with in that context and not seeing only as an incident. So you don't only want the drafters of social cohesion policies or those that work around, say, for instance, in that particular case in Stellenbosch, in the residences. It should not only become a residence issue or are our programs effective. It should be an issue where we actually should say, well, let's think about it. Let's think about the institution. And I want to. I've also in this opinion piece talked about the fact that at traditionally white universities, and I count our university in that group as well, the University of the Free State, we have started with the transformation and transformation programs quite early on, as with other institutions as well. And as the transformation means that more black students access the campuses of your traditional white universities, you create the focus of those traditional white universities always have been or could have been based on assimilation, absorption of the students into the dominant culture of that institution. But as the number of black students increases, you reach a critical point and a critical mass where these students start to question, why should we always adapt to the institution, to the culture? Why should the institution not always or also adapt to us, so that we can also influence the institutional
especially
culture
especially because a university like yours is not an island. You're part of society, and South Africa has been going through its big transformation journey, so to speak, since 1994. Do you think enough is changed besides the diversity that you are seeing now, besides the numbers that you are referring to of black South African students at your university and others? But do you think, just broadly, I mean, you can use your university as an example, Prof, that universities have actually embraced the new South Africa? Are they changing? I mean, away from the fees must fall, away from the decolonization of a curriculum, just looking at them, how they do things, you know, instead of assimilation, as you say, into the status quo.
Yeah, no, I certainly do think that universities are doing a lot, but as I said, the transformation journey never ends to a certain extent. So therefore, you will have to continuously work and progress on these policies. So we could do much more as an institution and also as a sector in relation to hearing the student voice and hearing and understanding how they feel, how they fit in. And I think it's particularly important also to raise that in the context of Youth Month, where I believe that the student voice and safe spaces at university campuses should be provided for those voices to come out. So there's much more work that we need to do. And Dan, to a certain extent, you mentioned that universities are microcosms of society. I believe that universities should be microcosms of how society should look like.
They should lead the way. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I agree. That's how universities started. If you read about the history of universities, they were setting the tone and how society should be and behave, and the knowledge and all of that. But being Youth Month, I just want to go back there. Are you listening to the young voices? Do you hear them?
Yes, we do, but probably not enough. They probably would say you don't listen to us enough. What we did in our institution is to create in our leadership structures and in other structures of the university spaces for the students to be represented. And in fact, a few weeks ago, I asked our students, why are you not taking up of these spaces? We created that, but you're not there. And I think some of them actually made a remark by saying maybe the spaces that's being created isn't inviting enough. The space is there, we're there, but if we talk, you're probably not hearing us the way that we should be heard. So I think that in itself have reminded me and our institution again to rethink what we're actually doing. Although we create these spaces for the students, the voices can be voiced, but does the student feel comfortable to be able and confident to be able to raise that voice? So that is that continuous questioning and reflection that I was talking about, to see how we can improve on those. And these trigger moments help us to think more carefully.
Yeah, and you've made a point. I'll want to end there, with the trigger moments in terms of they shouldn't define. The trigger moments, the racist incidents, let's call them that, should not define the institutions, or do not rather define the institutions, because they've done a lot of work. It's a journey, it's transformation. But I would like to argue that more than making the young voices in your space to feel comfortable, to be able to engage and tell you how they feel, you should make them feel safe.
Absolutely. No, I totally, Dan, I'm not arguing with you on that. They should feel free to and I think when you refer to the word safe, I think you probably arguing or suggesting that they should feel comfortable articulating their voice wherever they are. And that is exactly where I said we should spend more work on.
Yeah, with no fear of saying, hey, if I say this, the professor is going to punish me, or this will happen, or they will mark me down and stuff like that. Okay, let's end here where we began, which is towards the end of your opinion piece that I've read about these trigger events, as you call them, these moments of racist incidents like the urinating incident we saw in Stellenbosch University recently, don't define the institutions because they are doing more work and stuff like that. Okay, if those should not be defining the institutions, looking forward and understanding the journey that we are on of transformation, what should define an institution like yours into the future? What are these things that should define your institution?
I think what I would like the institution to be defined, my institution, I presume other institutions as well, is for them to be progressive in their thinking, to not to become defensive, but to learn from these incidents. And the trigger moment that in this case was racism linked to it, but there could be others. It could be mental health, it could be gender-based violence, it could be other trigger moments. That should not define. You should be progressive in your thinking, and you should be able not to be defensive, but to learn from that, to continuously transform and reflect on what we're doing to build a better university that could serve the whole society of South Africa.
Yeah, because currently the realization is that inclusivity is not an option. I mean, diversity is a given. Yeah. We are diverse people, but we need to feel included, and it's not an option. Thank you very much for your time, sir, and hopefully you win in that regard. And I do agree with you. Universities should lead the way in shaping societies' thinking and knowledge and how we should behave going forward. That's Professor Francis Peterson, the Vice-Chancellor, Rector and Vice-Chancellor of the University of the Free State.